to Heart and Mind. It's Happy Tuesday. Um, I'm Dina McMillan. I am a social psychologist and your host for this journey. Today, we're going to be talking about the new language of love. So, I hope you all have your hearts ready to listen up, contribute, and add. And speaking of adding, let me tell you anybody who is listening on a platform, if you're watching this live, just sign in to whatever platform you're watching it on, and you can actually live offer comments, questions, and input. Please do so because I have promised you no more boring Tuesdays. No more boring Tuesdays. So we live stream every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. on the Pacific Coast. I am often joined also by my friend Melinda Richards from Queensland, Australia, where it is 10 a.m. on Wednesday. So they're a day ahead. And I'm also joined by some of my fans who have, I don't know if they're fans because they have insomnia or they're just people that watch my work who've had insomnia for a while, but they're watching this live at 1 o'clock in the morning in the UK. So wherever you are, whether you're watching it live or you go onto Rumble, Daily Cloud, X, YouTube, and watch the recording, I welcome you all. And I promise every episode you're going to find information you will not get anywhere else. And I can promise you that because unlike so many other people who are social scientists or psychologists, clinical psychologists, social psychology is different. We are the devious science, which is why I always find interesting and odd pictures of mad scientists to post on this. It's actually true. Social psychology, we study how the brain works and we study power dynamics, but we also look at how the brain learns, how we learn, how we're influenced and persuaded, manipulated, coerced, indoctrinated, and brainwashed. One of my life's missions is to make people more manipulation proof. And it's one of the reasons I bring the information to you through this show, through my writing, through my work, through my training, through my websites. I want people to be able to shield themselves from manipulation, coercion, persuasion that goes against their beliefs and their values. And again, that's with social psychology. We study how to do that, how to influence people without them knowing they've been influenced. Isn't that creepy? But I'm on the side of the angels, and so are you. And welcome. I'm so glad you're all here. And speaking of being here, speaking of manipulation, this is a very exciting time because Dr. Naomi Wolf, one of the authors of the Pfizer papers and one of the founders of the Daily Cloud Network, is preparing to speak to the EU Parliament right now, invited by Christine Anderson. She's going to be talking to the European Parliament about the Pfizer papers. And guess what? You can get your own copy. Go on Amazon. You have to have the copy of this. Looking at what occurred to all of us during the COVID fiasco, and which hasn't stopped, because keep in mind two things. They're still offering COVID vaccinations, even with all of the incredible evidence of the damage that it causes. And a lot of mainstream networks are censoring information on the damage. So a lot of Jane and Joe average, not because they're stupid, but because nobody's told them. A lot of Jane and Joe average are still believing in the COVID vaccine. Pfizer likes that because they make money off of it. They went to court to attempt to get the information about the vaccine and its effects, its impact, its harms. They wanted to keep it hidden for 75 years. The courts said no. So they tried to swamp people with paper. Well, Dr. Naomi Wolf, Amy Kelly, and an incredibly qualified team, all of whom have suffered as a result of standing up to this harm. They went through those documents and they put together the Pfizer papers so that all of us, those of us who aren't physicians, can look through and see what really happened. What happened during the studies? What happened post studies? What is in this vaccine that they were forcing everyone to get? Please, please, please get your own copy. And buying a copy also supports the work of Daily Clout, who work hard. Everybody at Daily Clout works hard to bring information to you so that you have genuine information on what's going on behind the scenes. Another name for Daily Clout could be behind the curtain, based on what you saw in The Wizard of Oz. When Toto pulled the curtain and you saw that the great wizard was standing there with all of his devices, and he was convincing people of things. He was getting them to look over here, misdirection, look over here at this stunning entity that's saying, with a deep voice saying, you must do this. And it was all being controlled behind that curtain. This network helps you look behind the curtain. Every show on this network helps you look behind the curtain, because you need to know what they're doing to all of us and what they're doing to your family as well, your community, our society. Now, speaking of what is being done, one of the things I find really interesting is how clever the influencers are, the people who profit off our lack of awareness, the people who profit off having a society of insecure people with poor relationships. Because, of course, if you are insecure and have bad relationships, it is far easier for a third party, a marketing company, a campaign, a political movement to influence you. It's one of the reasons it's done. Because I shouldn't say we're easier to manipulate in those circumstances. And one thing they do not want to let go of, they want to ruin our romantic relationships. So they keep changing the rules. So this episode today is about how they're changing the rules. Now, language is just the surface. Underneath that language change are norms and expectations that they're trying to shift, not because they want to improve society, but because they want to weaken it. Again, the weaker we are, the less emotional support we have, the less security we have, the weaker our principles, the less accountability we have, the easier we are for power to be manipulated by powerful people. I don't want that to happen. So we're going to talk about it today, and don't worry, it's not going to all be doom and gloom. You can tell I had a little bit of fun with this. I mean, putting these slides together every week requires some real time and effort. I do a lot of research on every episode. And the reason I put the slides together is because studies have found we are all more likely to remember information, whether we see it written or we hear it, if we also see a relevant image connected to it. That imagery, that picture superiority effect, helps us remember necessary key information so we can use it when we need it. So I want you all to stick here. This is going to be an interesting ride. Ever wonder why your brain feels foggy, even when you're eating clean and exercising? It may not be burnout. It could be parasites. Groundbreaking research from Dr. Alan MacDonald revealed a direct link between chronic parasitic infections and neurological diseases like multiple sclerosis. Parasites can cause inflammation, nerve damage, and long-term cognitive decline. More reason to do a full body cleanse at least once a year. The wellness company has a solution for you. Ivermectin plus menbendazole, the gold standard parasite solution, now combined in one cleanse combo. designed to eliminate harmful invaders and support your immune system naturally. Medical grade, not some trendy herbal gimmicks. Fill out a quick intake form and get a 3-month supply shipped straight to your door. Maha is officially here. And the wellness company is making hard to get medications digitally accessible so you can live your best life. Head to dailyclout.health and use the code dailyclout to save $60 off plus free shipping on all orders. Cleanse your body today. Now, while I was discussing the parasite cleanse, I got a comment from Nettie and making a comment about people being easier to manipulate when their brain is affected. And unfortunately, for our entire society, a lot is coming out about the COVID vaccine, not just increasing risk of heart disease and turbo cancer, but also having neurological effects on us. So the next, I'd say 5 to 10 years are going to be interesting in a bad way, because we're going to actually be able to have studies to show what the damage was from those vaccines. And in a good way, because a lot of the professionals, biologists, cardiologists, physicians of every stripe who were brave enough to stand back from the promotion of that vaccine because it was untested and the early studies were not supportive of a mass rollout. And people put their careers on the line to be able to say no to that. Those same people are constantly looking for solutions. So please don't think when you hear, oh my goodness, it's causing brain problems. Please also know there are people like me. Anytime I see a problem, my second question is, how do we fix it? And there are a lot of people on the job now. So keep your eyes open, and especially the wellness company is well known. Now, the wellness company is behind the parasite cleanse that I just spoke about, but they have a lot of products designed to undo the damage from those vaccines. So please go online and have a look. I want all of you to be safe. Now, speaking of relationships and influence, the people who profit off of our insecurity are constantly shifting the meanings of things. And this has gotten severely worse over, I'd say, the last 10, 15 years. Some of you aren't old enough to remember 10 or 15 years ago, but last 10 or 15 years, a lot of things, some very clever people figured out we don't necessarily have to change things. All we have to do is shift the meaning of existing terms. And when we get to my work on why you're not a racist and how the current Democrat Party, the current left progressive movement, changed the meaning of racism, it went from purposely disliking and disrespecting anyone who's different than yourself. That was a conscious choice. They're now saying it's just, if you are not an ethnic minority in the United States, you're automatically a racist. I won't say what it is because I don't curse, but it's not true. Let's just say it's not true. But they've been trying to change our love life since the 60s. All of that free love and sexual revolution, nobody benefited from that. All it did is create generations, 2 generations and more of broken families, insecurity, problematic thinking. And of course, when you have a family, you have a huge population with these problems, they're so much easier to manipulate, which is probably why the take-up rate for the vaccine was so high. In some places, the mandates were brutal. You just couldn't do anything. So people were taking the vaccine because they needed to feed their families. But a lot of people bought into the whole COVID narrative. It had a huge propaganda campaign with people from all role models from all different walks of life, politicians, celebrities, everybody was saying, do this. But why did people not pay attention to what they were seeing on the ground, to the incongruities? It's like, wait a minute, on the side of the box of the mask, it says it doesn't protect against COVID. So why do we have to wear it? Why are people still wearing it? A lot of it has to do with generations of propaganda and intentional disruption of the core of our society, which is the married couple and the family that they produce. So let's talk about why this shifting meaning really matters. Because right now, they're trying again to make a romantic makeover. Now, part of this is something that I've talked about before, and I've written a book on it. I'm going to be teaching classes on it, teaching women to be that empowerment for women means acting like bad men, being aggressive and not liking men and mistreating men and all of that. That does not lead to happy households, but it's not just that. It's not just that, and we're going to talk about it. So I want you again to play along. Think about, as we go through, think about whether the terminology and the ideals behind those terms are something you've experienced. Think about whether it's something you've done, and stay with me. The American healthcare system is broken. Big Pharma charges an arm and a leg for their products, while insurance companies are focused on growing healthcare spending. So I'm always researching ways to take care of myself naturally. And one of the most overlooked factors is improving your blood flow. That means more oxygen and nutrients to your brain, heart, muscles, and even places that need a little extra help as you age. I use Blood Flow 7 from Juvenon. It works by boosting nitric oxide levels 230% and opening arteries up to 62% to improve blood flow. With just one dose a day, just 2 capsules with or without food, it's helped improve my stamina, energy, focus, and supports my heart health, all without caffeine or stimulants. It's doctor formulated, scientifically backed, with premium and natural ingredients. Look, I wouldn't share it if it didn't work for me. Go to www.bloodflow7.com/Daily Clout or click the link in the description below the video to learn more today. Now, here's why it's important. And I should say that because, at the beginning of the show, a lot of people are still signing in. We're going to have some really interesting shows coming up because next week we're going to talk about sex. We're talking about sex, pornography, the pornification of our culture. We're going to talk about why it matters if you are not a Black person, why it matters that there are so many videos of Black people twerking and Black women twerking to their small boys, in front of their small boys, waving their bottoms and their genitals in the faces of their small boys. Why all of this matters? Seeing kids, small Black kids humping on each other. Why does that matter? It's something you might look at and say, oh, look at those people over here. Oh, look at them. But because of the internet, because of influence, it has an influence on your kids and your family. And people look things up and it goes into our brains. This is why a basic understanding of social psychology is so important. You change language and you change people's expectations. People go on and do not understand. They don't even realize how their expectations have changed. So you could have a romantic partner and you could be all set. Say, I have my principles, beliefs, I'm good. But what about your partner who's looking online and seeing something or being told something or going to a social event where the other people of their same sex are saying, well, you really shouldn't put up with that, or you should demand this. And what about our children? They are so easily influenced by the sparkle of the media. So changing the language is really important, which is why we really should resist it. Unless there's a good reason for it, we should resist it because it's not just changing what something is called, it's an attempt to change what's normalized, what's expected, what's demanded. Now, also, I had a comment during that period from nevermarrieddating.com. So if you're somebody who's never been married, it's a great site. Nevermarrieddating.com. It's a dating site for people who haven't been married yet, but perhaps would like to. They mentioned the fact that there's a collapsing birth rate. Well, that will change. People don't realize the flow on effect of getting rid of 40 million illegal immigrants. It means employment opportunities will improve. It means housing prices will improve. It means cost of living will go down. So becoming family oriented, having more children, it really standing up for the family, really standing up for those principles like a lot of the people on the conservative side are doing right now, that's going to expand the ideals around the glory of having children. We have to replicate and bring ourselves into a new society. It is go forth and multiply, is what we were told. That's going to be more possible if we keep going the way we're going over the next 10 years, because a collapsing birth rate is a real problem. But I want you to pay attention to that last word in this little thing here. Can you see this? Demanded. We're getting a lot of people demanding things that are not necessarily healthy for the relationship and are causing a lot of problems. Never Married Dating just left me a message saying United States birth rate reached a record new low, dropping to 1.6 children per woman. United States is now below birth replacement level needed to maintain a stable population. Easily fixed. Easily fixed. The good thing is easily fixed. Ask Elon with his 12 kids, okay? We can do something about that, but we have to have a society that's more cohesive, where most people are not listening to a political side that constantly tries to scare you about everything, that tells you the world is falling on your head, something that talks about a side that says, hey, let's build up something really strong and great. People will feel more optimistic about having children. We are going to fix that over the next few years, and you can quote me on that. And please note, we are all influenced by what we see and hear. We are all influenced. I keep reminding you, I write books on this. I'm an expert in this, and I'm still influenced. I have to be just as careful as I tell you to be, because I can be influenced by the same things that influence you. Because the part of the brain, my brain that has the PhD, the problem solving part of our brain, the judgment part of our brain, the language part of our brain, is not the part of the brain that makes these life choices, that forms emotional bonds, that is triggered by strong feelings of survival. Those are other parts of the brain, and they don't have filters. They will take in whatever they're exposed to, which is why I keep telling you, we all have to worry about what we expose ourselves to. So let's get to it. Stay with me, and we're going to get to it. If you're like me and you're getting to that age where your body just hurts all the time, then listen up. Don't reach for another painkiller until you learn about this little known turmeric hack for pain and inflammation. You've probably already heard about turmeric being used to fight inflammation and joint pain. But here's the thing, not all turmeric is created equal. Regular turmeric powder from your pantry might help a little, But a leading pain doctor from Connecticut discovered a special turmeric extract that is 200 times more powerful than what you'd find in standard turmeric. And when he shared this turmeric hack with his patients, the results were shocking. This turmeric extract attacks pain at the source, turning it off like a light switch so that pain not only goes away, it stays away. Dr. Josh, the brains behind it all, has spent over 20 years helping hundreds of thousands of Americans finally break free from constant aches and stiffness. And his turmeric hack has been the backbone of their success. Say goodbye to expensive surgeries, pain injections, or ineffective over the counter medications, and say hello to pain free living. This is incredible stuff. Once I started taking it on a regular basis, I really noticed a difference. But again, you can't just take any old turmeric. So if you want to learn more about Dr. Josh, his turmeric hack, and the exact method for how to use it in your daily routine, just go to goldenrevive.com/daily clout. The link is right below the video in the description. Just click it and start your journey towards a pain-free, healthier life. So, are you ready? And once again, if you're just signing in and you're just joining us, welcome, welcome. We're going to be talking about the changing language of love. And please note, I've already mentioned it's not just new language, it's new norms, expectations, and demands. How many of these terms do you already know? Okay, when I was researching these, can I admit this to you all? I didn't know all of them. I looked at all these different sources, women's magazines and things, and some of them was like, what the heck is that? But also, if any of you have teenagers or parents to young adults, this can help you have some insight into what they're talking about with each other when they use terminology that is unfamiliar to you. Some of it is good, some of it bad, some of it you may know already. Have any of these moves, and they're all describe a type of interaction. Have any of these types of interaction, have these moves been used on you? Have you used them on anybody else? Let's start with this one, gaslighting. Gaslighting has become a very popular term. And everything has a definition, as I said, because I want you to remember this. And you please bookmark this episode. Especially if you are dating or you're not in a permanently committed relationship and you want to know what's going on, please bookmark this episode so you can just run through it again and figure out what's happening. Oh, and by the way, although I talked about this for romance, some of this is also used on friends. I should say, when I moved to Australia, first moved to Sydney, I shared a house with a woman that I often bring up in conversation, and I even bring her up in my seminars for my Unmasking the Abuser program, because this woman was a textbook abuser. And it didn't just affect her romantic relationships, it impacted her friendships as well. She tried gaslighting me. We had a mutual friend come over for tea and conversation, and we had a nice chat. And at one point, she just turned to me and said something really mean. Later on, I said to her, "That was really mean what you said to me, and I was embarrassed when you said that in front of our mutual friend." And she looked at me and said, "Oh, I didn't say that." Then she came to me several times over the following week to tell me, "I spoke to my dad and he said, he agreed with me that I would never say something like that." Well, actually, when I was going to move in with her, her dad said to me, "Be careful, she's pretty horrible." Now, your own father says this, but she gave me such great information on what abusers are like. It also allowed me, when I'm accused of being sexist, when people say, well, you always talk about male abusers, what about female abusers? I always bring her up. She was textbook. She tried to gaslight me. She tried to convince me that something that she not only said to me recently, but said in front of a third party who could also witness it. She tried to convince me that it never happened. And then she tried to convince me that the person who'd really said it was somebody in a past relationship. In my more than 20 years working with abuse and abuse victims, I see this one used a lot. But again, it is not just used romantically. And it reminds me of that old Shaggy song, It Wasn't Me. So there's a hip hop R&B song where the guy gets caught cheating on his girlfriend and he goes to his friend and says, "Oh my God, she caught me. What do I do?" And his friend said, "Say it wasn't you." So the whole song is about this guy talking about, "Oh, it wasn't me. You know, you saw me multiple times cheating on you with this woman, but it was your imagination and it wasn't me." Gaslighting. Be careful of this because this can be used in the workplace as well. Someone does something bad to you and they then try to convince you it's your imagination that it even happened at all. You can imagine how horrifying this can be. And the term is based on a movie called Gaslight, that is a classic movie that is definitely worth watching. Now, most of you probably heard this term too, ghosting. I had this happen to me. I mentioned it on the show before. Somebody that I became friendly with during the COVID years and invited me to a talk. And I went to the talk, and there was somebody there that was very pro vaccine. And as usual, being the minority in so many ways, I didn't say anything when this guy was going on and on about how great the COVID vaccine was. But then he said, he asked me specifically if I was vaccinated. And I said, no. He said, why? I said, I just said because I felt it was too untested. He stood up and had a temper tantrum, said he wasn't going to sit with me. I was an anti-vaxxer, called me names, stomped off. And since that incident, this person who I used to speak with at least twice a month just ghosted me. Just hasn't, never told me why, just ghosted me. They cut off all communication, disappearing from your life, and they don't even bother giving you a reason. As you can imagine, it's a very hurtful thing to do to someone. So I'm asking you, have you ever ghosted somebody? Now, this one I didn't know, but I thought it was funny. Breadcrumbing. Sending flirtatious or vague messages just to keep somebody interested with no real intention of getting involved with them or staying involved or moving the relationship on. You'll notice a lot of these tactics indicate somebody being extremely selfish and highly manipulative. This is extremely manipulative. Just feeding your ego by keeping someone on the line that you have no intention of getting involved with. Love bombing. You've probably all heard about this one too. This is one of the tactics that I have on my list for abusers. In my Unmasking the Abuser program, what I've done is I've identified the specific tactics used by abusers both at the very beginning of the relationship to lure in and psychologically condition the new victim, but also if the relationship runs into a big problem. Either they get caught doing something really horrible, or if the person that they're with is about to leave, they will use these same tactics. So I identified the tactics. There aren't that many, but they're extremely powerful. And this one is powerful. Love bombing. Overwhelming someone with excessive attention, gifts, or promises of gifts, attention early on to get them to bond, to start forming a bond, to make them feel good so that they associate feeling good with this new person. And of course, also So you're focused so much on those good feelings that you're ignoring all the warning signs and the red flags that are also happening. Love bombing is very. Never married dating asked a question about the breadcrumbing. Is that because they always want to have a backup person to date? I would say no. I would say it's not even that. It's more about feeding their ego with no concern or care at all for how they're just manipulating and mistreating someone, giving someone false hope. It's cruel. It's a very selfish move. Love bombing is it's so prevalent because it works so well. Most of us are a little bit starved for positive attention. And there are so many studies, if you look them up, on how we respond more positively to someone who flatters us, even if we know that they're flattering us to try to get something from us. Love bombing, you have to be careful of this because it's so often effective. Situationship. Huh? I looked this up and I was like, what in the heck is this? It's well known, especially among young people. It's a relationship that lacks a clear label, commitment, or boundaries existing in a gray area. Well, I would look at this and say, so many of the moves and so many of the things that they're trying to normalize by giving them a label. So, oh, we're in a situationship. It is heartbreak waiting to happen. I have been consulting people about their relationships for more than 20 years. And so many things that people talk themselves into are heartbreak waiting to happen. This is one of them. It can happen. Some people can have just like a casual situationship where there's no boundaries. They just see each other sometimes when they want to, but it is rare that it works. Usually one person gets more attached than the other. Red flags. Red flags. Please pay attention to these. My whole Unmasking the Abuser program is showing you the red flags. And please note something. A lot of the red flags that we discuss in Unmasking the Abuser actually seem positive. If you're with somebody who's paying a lot of attention to you and actively listening and doing all of these things, you don't know it's a red flag. But if it happens too intensely and it happens too soon, it's a huge one. So everybody needs to learn. Yes, by the way, never married dating, we're going to talk about what you just mentioned in just a short while. You're absolutely right. So, yes, red flags, warning signs of unhealthy or toxic behavior in a relationship, and usually that is too often ignored. One of the things I am able to help people do is understand which is just points of difference, which is just personal quirks, and which things really should be paid attention to, even if they seem positive. My work has helped more than 85, actually it's more than 87% of people who've taken my training said that they are able to use the information in real life to keep themselves safe, whether I train them with the information to use professionally or personally. You got to know. You have to pay attention to the red flags and you have to know what they are, even the ones that can seem positive. There are also green flags, things that are actually a good sign. Somebody who loves their mother, somebody with normal, healthy boundaries, somebody that is considerate and consistent, somebody that's had a healthy relationship before. A lot of green flags. I want you to pay attention to those too, because we are not just about negativity. I don't hear reference to the green flags very often. There are also yellow flags, which you're not quite sure what to do with. After taking my training, you know what to do with them. But yes, I want you to pay attention to the green flags too. And in my training that I'm going to be doing for women, I'm going to show you a lot more of these green flags because a lot of women don't know what's really good and what's not. Benching. Yes, football terminology. Keeping somebody as a backup option while not fully committing or investing in them. Again, just like breadcrumbing, This is a little bit more active than breadcrumbing. Breadcrumbing can be just little gestures. This is actually like dating someone or seeing them sometimes to keep them as a backup option so they're not moving on because you're giving them false hope is what you're doing. This is a cruel thing to do to somebody, but it happens a lot. Orbiting. This is relatively new and it is enabled by technology. They cut off direct contact, but they still engage with your social media. So they're still always liking your stuff or leaving positive comments or little emojis like clapping when something good happens for you, but they won't actually engage with you. They won't even call you. Just these little peripheral things. This is another case of somebody who's probably keeping their options open. I'd say orbiting is an even more distant, but still a type of breadcrumbing where you're trying to keep your hand in so that the person doesn't fully move on. Cushioning. Maintaining contact with other potential partners. This is the backup. This is one of the backup options while you're in a current relationship. So you're still having lunch or having drinks or calling or texting or having contact with someone. So just in case your main relationship doesn't work, that you don't have to spend time alone. Oh my God, these things are selfish. But this is what's going on. Okay, I was having too much fun when I put this one together. I couldn't help myself. There's a term called zombieing. Anybody heard of that? I hadn't. When someone who ghosted you suddenly reappears in your life and act like nothing happens. Oh, it's like, hey, you want to go out and do something? Wait a minute. For 6 months, you acted like I was dead. And they just act like, oh, nothing happens. You know what I've seen that's really disheartening? If the person being ghosted, if they're really in love with this zombie person, they will often accept that and not question them and just allow themselves to be used like this. Slow fade. This is like what they call slow. What do they call it? Slow quitting. This is the romantic version of slow quitting, where you don't actually just stop. You don't quit. You don't walk out. You just gradually start withdrawing your best efforts and your energy, and you just start pulling away. I have found a lot of guys do this, or especially if it really bugs the woman and she has made it clear, why are you acting like this? This is horrible. Because they don't want to be the bad guy and break up the relationship. So they just slow fade it until the woman feels forced for her own self-esteem. She feels forced to break it off. This is slow fading, whatever your sex, is a very weak thing to do. The other stuff we've seen is primarily really, really selfish. This one is selfish and it's weak. Paper clipping. I've never heard of that. Here we go. Paper. That's why I put the paper clip there. I want you to remember it. When someone who ghosted you pops up occasionally, just to keep you interested without real intent to reconnect. So this isn't like the person who zombies you, who goes for a long period of time and just has no contact whatsoever, and then just acts like they saw you yesterday. This is when somebody does it more often, where they just disappear for a while, show up again, and want to make sure that you keep your hopes high and you don't move on. But they really don't intend to change the relationship in any fundamental way. Oh, some of this stuff, it hurts my heart even talking about it. Now, this is a term that I am absolutely certain came from the British initially. For those of you who, I have some insomniac British people who actually watch this show live, and more of them who actually watch the recording. I don't know if you remember, the Americans know this, the Australians do. But in the UK, vacuuming is cold hoovering. So this is about sucking somebody back into a relationship. So this is doing everything you can. This is not just somebody showing up with flowers. This is somebody showing up like the Cary Grant movie Madame Butterfly. I haven't seen that. Um, Somebody just pulling you in. So I know, so probably they ghosted you. Probably either you left or they left, but they come back to you with lots and lots of promises. And again, this is something we talk about in my training because this is a tactic used a lot by abusers. When they finally hit the deal breaker and the victim decides to leave, they will often gather every promise, every asset and resource they've got, and then throw it at the victim to keep the person from leaving. Of course, they haven't really changed. And if they can get the person back with a promise instead of the reality, it's all to the better because they don't like to keep their promises. They like to make big promises that they have no intention of keeping. Future faking. Now, this is the term that's being used right now. In my tactics of abusers, I call this the fairy tale lure. And what is this? This is making big plans, constantly getting you focused on this ideal future with them, with no real intention of following through, uh, just to secure a commitment. Now, what happens with the when I talk about the fairy tale lure, they may actually be willing to make a commitment. That's in one way, it's a little different here. They may be actually willing to make a commitment, but the happy ever after they're promising will never happen. You will be miserable because what they're offering is really at its heart a toxic relationship. Now, the future faking isn't necessarily a toxic relationship at its core, but you've got to wonder about somebody who will make promises to you with no real intention of keeping those promises. That means lack of integrity. Anybody that watches this show knows what a big advocate for integrity I am. So anybody you get involved with no integrity, like so many of these tactics demonstrate, is going to cause you constant heartache. Friends with benefits. Again, oxytocin does not ask your permission before it's emitted. When you're having a consistent sexual relationship with somebody, especially if the sex is actually good, you are risking getting very attached to them. Now, and it's not just women. How many men have ended up broke because they left their healthy marriage for their mistress, for their secretary, for somebody they saw as a side piece, somebody they were just seeing casually. But they got attached enough that they ended up leaving their marriage and it cost them dearly. So, guys, don't think this is just something that is risky for women. It's risky for men too. So, any of these, but this kind of thing, by giving this a label and a term and peppering it into our media and trying to normalize it, they are trying to normalize relationships based on superficial sexuality with no emotional bond, which causes all sorts of havoc in your life. It's a very expensive thing to do. It's like ads for high interest loans. These are high interest loans. Now, here is a term that, like gaslighting, but even more than gaslighting, has been so popular over the last years: narcissism. Now, it is a diagnosed psychological condition. It is a personality disorder where a person has an excessive sense of self importance, a complete lack of genuine empathy and compassion, and a constant need for admiration and attention. They believe they are superior and unique. They tend to be arrogant, entitled, and exploitative, which, as you know, means they will use people with no compunction. So, a lot of the tactics that you saw earlier, like the breadcrumbing and whatever, a narcissist would have no problem using because they don't really care how what they do impacts other people. What they care about is getting what they want. And I have actually identified a psychological condition by abusers that I call abusive personality disorder, and it includes a type of narcissism known as malignant narcissism. So it has all of this, but it also includes a vindictiveness and a refusal to ever let go of someone or to let go of a grudge. So if you are working in law enforcement, for any of you in law enforcement, you may see a domestic violence situation where the person who attacks was two partners ago for both people. They've all both moved on with their lives, but something happens that triggers a memory in the abuser, and they just can't let it go, and they will attack because they never forgive, never forget. That's that malignant part of that. But even a person who doesn't have malignant narcissism, pathological narcissism, makes relationships extremely difficult. And it is far more than just being selfish. Too often, people with no background in this will label someone a narcissist when the person is just selfish or doesn't have integrity. Narcissism's a lot more serious and it's scary. Codependency, another term from psychology that's made it into the mainstream. This is an unhealthy dynamic where one person sacrifices all of their needs and wants to meet the needs and wants of the other person to the detriment of their own well-being. Well, as you can imagine, a victim in an abusive relationship is codependent because the abuser demands it's their way all the time about everything. So everything has to be focused on them all the time. One of my worries about, like with narcissism, being thrown out, anybody that does something selfish, oh, you're a narcissist. No, codependency I've seen misused towards traditional women who sacrifice and stay home to build the home for the family. Oh, you're codependent. No, the couple have decided that's the dynamic they want for their family. How can you tell the difference? Even if you are in a traditional relationship where you're home with the kids and your husband is out earning a living, do you get time alone? Do you get time to go do things with your girlfriends? Are your needs and wants addressed sometimes? Now, it's hard to do with a lot of kids when they're small and they're all around, and goodness knows when he's working every hour God sends to try to support you all, a lot of things don't go well for him either. But one of the things I suggest for these families is that they do find some way of having some me time, both partners. If he objects to you having anything for yourself, that's when it's codependent. But every traditional relationship is not patriarchal slavery like a lot of people try to do, and it's not necessarily codependent. There are clear signs if it's codependent. So if you think you're in a codependent relationship, please look it up. Please look it up. Don't just take the label off of a women's magazine article, okay? Trauma bond. Now, this is something that is really interesting because the word is out about trauma bonding. What happens is when you have a relationship that's extremely volatile, psychologists have been stunned to discover that often the bond that forms between people in a volatile relationship may be stronger and more, resilient than if they have a more moderate relationship. Sometimes your brain is not your friend, okay? Just like when you go on a diet, you say, I'm going to eat healthy now. So you reduce your calories and your body thinks you're starving. So it slows your metabolism. Sometimes your brain is not your friend, and a trauma bond is one of those situations. Although one might argue that it is a survival mechanism for the brain. If you're with someone who can be extremely explosive at times, your willingness to be kind to them and to try to understand them could keep them from getting even more violent. But it is not a healthy thing. If you have been in a relationship that's highly volatile, this is why you probably need therapy and counseling to not only get out of the relationship, but to get over that relationship, to heal from that, because trauma bonds can be extremely difficult to sever. I just want you to know that. Now, here's something that Never Married Dating brought up. I have noticed for more than 10 years that the mainstream culture, not only is it hypersexualizing everything, promoting promiscuity, promoting extreme selfishness, promoting aggression and disrespect for authority, especially for women. It's also trying to legitimize alternative ways of having families that studies have not found to be as healthy as what the traditional relationship is. They don't tell you that. Here's one of them, the throuple. Now, this was an ad, the picture's from an ad for house hunters. And when they featured this, they said, this is a throuple we have on House Hunters, and the audience is living for it. Really. So you don't just feature this non-traditional relationship where somebody is being taken advantage of. You're telling everybody, hey, everybody else is celebrating this, implying that if you think it's unhealthy or wrong or immoral, there's something wrong with you. All types of polyamorous relationship, yes, Never Married Dating talked about the polyamory that's in Utah. And don't forget, it's also allowed in Islam, but only for men. And if you've ever dealt with people in these types of relationships, if you've ever read up on what happens in the traditional harem, the women put a brave face on, but it is really hard on them. The only person who benefits is the guy who gets everything his own way. As you can imagine, that is not healthy for the kids to witness. It's not healthy for the women involved. It's not healthy for society. And because throuple is 2022, they've gone even farther. Quad is when you have 4 people in a relationship. That's supposedly a committed relationship between the 4 people. Again, because of my job, people come to me and tell me things knowing I have to keep it confidential, knowing somebody's always in tears. I don't care what kind of smile they put on for the camera. Somebody ends up in tears. Here's another one, monogamish. What? A mostly monogamous committed relationship that allows occasional sexual experiences with others. Even if the person, first of all, I rarely find this where both partners are doing this. Usually it's only one partner that's doing this, and the other person is always hurt, even if they feel they cannot show it. And this is all part of the hierarchical polyamory. This is what happens in the Muslim situation, where wife number 1 is supposed to have a higher position than the follow-up people. But what it is the hot mess. It's a situation where there's a lot of pain going on. This is not something we should be promoting. They seem to want to do anything and everything to destroy the family. Now, if you have any questions or comments, please go on X and just leave me one. And I also want to mention, if you'd like to hire me, either for couples, families, professional training for HR departments, law enforcement, go to ethicalstrategic.com. The training I offer is unlike anything else. It uses social psychology, neurology, neurolinguistic programming. We are interactive. It's designed to stick in your mind even under stress. So it's not just something where people say, oh, that was interesting training. They actually remember the information and are able to use it in their lives. So it's ethicalstrategic.com. That's easy to remember. And coming soon, I'm going to be offering small and large e-learning classes based on the material I cover in Heart and Mind. So we're going to have classes for women about men, classes for men about women. We're going to have an alpha male class. I'm going to offer a large one. And also, if there's interest, a small size specific one where you get one-on-one interaction time with me. So we turn you into an alpha male, nature's ideal guy. All of your favorite topics are going to be covered. Contact me on X at Dr. Dina 1. Thank you so much for joining me. Any questions, any comments, please let me know. And I should mention here, I had someone, Roscoe, who often makes comments on the show, contacted me about the circles of intimacy, where I have that little test where you can tell how the people in your life really feel about you and how you really feel about them. Had questions. So in 2 weeks, on the 16th of September, I'm going to do that show again with new information, interesting information. If you have any questions, let me know. Next week, we're talking about sex, so prepare yourself. And if you're under 15, shouldn't watch. Okay, thank you so much. I'm Dina McMillan, social psychologist and your host for Heart and Mind. See you next Tuesday.